Thank you, everybody. We're going to go right into questions. First questions will be for the candidates for the 7th congressional seat. This will be for you, Congressman. And Mr. Malik, you'll have 30 seconds to respond. Congressman, 1 minute. And Mr. Malik, 30 seconds to respond. What is the most important issue in your election that affects our Peachtree Corners local citizens?
I'm gonna have to be predictable in this space and tell you that tax reform is that answer, right? What are we supposed to do at the federal level? We're supposed to deal with national defense. We will, but not in a way that deals with Peachtree Corners any differently than anyone else. We're supposed to make sure that freedoms and civil rights are protected. We're going to do that, but not in a way that makes a difference here other than the way it will elsewhere. But tax reform, and we have a proposal that's moving through the Ways and Means Committee. It's not the fair tax, but it has fair tax fingerprints all over it. It's being introduced by the Ways and Means Committee chairman, which gives it more oomph this cycle than what we've had in years past. Empowers the very entrepreneurs that the doctor was just talking about. We have more small businesses per capita in this district than any other congressional district in the state. That is going to matter for jobs and the economy right here.
As tax has come up, one thing I would say, fair tax, we are overlooking something, a marginal consumption. If we give fair tax to everybody, a person will consume so much. After that, that money would be stagnant. There will be no circulation of funds. Two things are needed for economic development. That is circulation of funds and circulation of resources, human resources and other resources. So in my point of view, fair tax will not work. My main point, which I'll bring to the life of the Peachtree Corners, is entrepreneurship and free the...
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Thank you. All right, next question will be for the candidates for Gwinnett County Chair, and this will be for Chairman Nash. What is the most important issue with the greatest impact of Gwinnett County citizens in your election for the next 4 years?
Well, you're going to be surprised with what I say in response to this one. Some of you will be. And the issue is water. It's kind of lost the news media's attention. It's been quiet to some extent because we've got the water wars litigation that Florida's filed against the state of Georgia. But I can tell you there's nothing else that will have as great an effect on Gwinnett County as if the state loses that litigation and we're then thrown into a question about what type of water withdrawal we can have from Lake Lanier. And it's probably, to me, one of the most frustrating issues because there's limits as to what we can do to deal with this directly. I mean, we're working with the state. The county has its own set of attorneys. We're very pleased to have Congressman Woodall helping Congress, but it's something that is a huge issue, but it's difficult for us to have to stop and say, we don't have control of this.
I would think that a major issue in Peachtree Corners right now is transportation. And that is something that we can do something about. I think that, we need some type of rail transportation in this area. And I just feel like that's a main issue for me.
Thank you. All right, next question will be for the candidates for the 40th Senate District. Senator Millar, you might have a pretty good idea what question I'm about to ask. The most important issue facing the folks in your district.
I think probably the largest district for Peachtree Corners and Gwinnett County in general will be to sustain the education performance that you've had. I mean, you were Urban District, School District of the Year twice. Thank you, Mary Kay and Alvin Wilbanks. But, you've got a lot of challenges in front of you. And I think Gwinnett's prepared for them because if I look at the demographics where I live in DeKalb and the demographics pretty much in Gwinnett, on a larger scale, Gwinnett has more children, 178,000 versus 100, but everything else is pretty well the same. Well, the difference of success has been leadership. And I think the things that you see that Gwinnett has done well, and they have to continue to do this and not deviate from it. They're doing a wonderful job in training the leaders of their schools. They have a tremendous principal academy out there. And they stay focused on the things that matter, that these kids continue to learn so they become productive citizens. So I think continuing education the way it's been is the most important thing out here in this area.
Ms. Johnson-Shealy?
This is probably the first time he and I are going to agree on something. So I do agree that education is a challenge. However, I'm watching the Opportunity School District, and the Opportunity School District is designed to take over quote-unquote failing schools across the state of Georgia. If they can do this in other districts, what's stopping them from doing it in Gwinnett County? And taking local control from the community is something that I think is a major concern, and Senator Millar did vote for that legislation.
All right, great, thank you. Second round, we'll head down to the end of the table. Mr. Malik, question is for you. You'll have a minute to answer, and then Congressman Woodall, 30 seconds to respond. Mr. Malik, if you're elected congressman for this district, tell us about one issue that you will champion.
As I said, two most important issues to me is micro-entrepreneurship and economic development. And it rolls into equal pay and rights of the woman. Why? If a man is making $1 per hour, the woman is making 75 cents. Where is that 25 cents going to? Who is enjoying her hard labor? We have to make sure that we uphold the dignity and the talents of the women equally as men. And believe me, if we can have 50% of the population to produce as much as the other producing, we'll have abundance in our society. Everybody will be free to do what they like to do. If you have the economic freedom, you can move where you want to move, you can go wherever you want to go, you can do whatever you want to do. The main thing is that we have to empower. We have to empower all of us through education and through economic opportunity. And that will help us all.
Congressman?
With 30 seconds, I'll piggyback on what Chairman Nash said earlier about water. I moved on to the Transportation Committee this cycle because they handle the water, and I knew that was the most important issue that we were facing immediately. The chairman has been up to Washington, D.C. on numerous occasions to talk about the leadership that we have provided here locally, and that partnership has given me a voice on the Transportation Committee, where for the first time since the water wars began, Georgia beat back Alabama and Florida and had Georgia language put into the federal statute rather than the other way around.
All right. Mr. Shealey, when the microphone arrives. Please let us know if you support MARTA expansion into our region.
Personally, I would like to see Gwinnett County have its own rail transportation. A lot of the tax dollars that would, the tax money that we would be putting out would end up under MARTA and be going elsewhere, going to other areas. Personally, I would like to see us to put a rail transportation system together in Gwinnett County.
I think the real question is whether the majority of the folks in Gwinnett County want to support joining the MARTA system or doing some other type of variation. I think we all know that there are important transportation improvements that need to be considered. We're going to be talking a little bit later tonight about the SPLOST proposal. The second phase of the Comprehensive Transportation Plan will be focused on other options besides vehicular travel. The first phase was focused on that, so it's definitely something to consider, but it needs to be in the hands of the voters of Gwinnett County.
All right. Next round will be for Ms. Johnson-Shealy. Question is, what is your position on guns on college campuses?
Oh, my.
Easy stuff like that.
Absolutely not. I do not believe that we should have guns on college campuses. We have an 18-year-old son, and just the thought of he and his friends, having fun, and then something accidentally happens is it's frightening for me. So I absolutely do not believe that we should have guns on college campuses.
Senator?
Well, I'm the senator that voted against guns on college campuses, but as chair of higher education, I will tell you the university system brought this on itself in many ways. When you're paying the kind of money a kid's paying to go to some of our schools, you need to provide security. And they beefed a lot of things up. I think you're going to hear some more about that in January. So I think they're taking a lot of steps. And quite frankly, as long as Nathan Deal is governor, you're not going to see that happen. So I think it won't even come up in the upcoming legislative session. I'd be very surprised.
All right, that's 2 rounds. Everybody's listening to the rules. We're doing fantastic. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Back down to the end of the table, Congressman, for you, 1 minute, and then Mr. Malik, 30 seconds to respond. Congressman, will you support banning people on the terror watch list from purchasing guns?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is we disagree about what the terror watch list is. There are about 6 different lists out there. If what you're talking about is the no-fly list, the answer is no. The no-fly list, as you know, captured John Lewis on it. Took him months to get off the no-fly list. It's not a stringent list to get on at all. The terror watch list, on the other hand, a very different list. There are already tickles in the background check system to alert you to terror watch list status. The question isn't, do those folks create a tickler? The question is, do we keep them on there with that tickler even after the FBI has stopped the initial investigation?
Mr. Malik?
Life is very precious, and I believe that we should empower our law enforcement officers to come up with their expertise, ideas, how not to let those possibilities happen that lives can be at stake. So we should take all measures to stop gun violence and giving out gun as a free thing to anybody, whoever wants it. So we have to be very careful and prudent about it, that gun does not flow to everybody and anybody. There should be a strong background check. I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will be for Chairperson Nash. What can be done to retain qualified police officers in Gwinnett County?
There's a variety of actions, including better pay. I know that there's some misunderstanding about the benefits and what we're already providing for our police officers. Part of what we're seeing is that about half of the folks that are leaving Gwinnett County, leaving our police force, they're leaving policing. So I think the circumstances that law enforcement faces in the community today, all across the U.S., is having an effect on their willingness to stay. But we definitely have to make it as attractive to be at Gwinnett County as possible. We provide them the best equipment, the best training, and promotional opportunities, and we support our law enforcement folks.
Mr. Shealey?
One of the things that I look at the law enforcement, and you know, when you talk about pay, is definitely important, very important to them. You know, they took, and you know, and this is all of the county workers, they took went through a freeze from 2009, and wages were frozen, and then when 2016 they get their wages back, they get a 4% increase, you know, and we're saying, you know, they were in a hole and they were never brought back, you know, to normal. One of the things I look at is that they basically deserve good pay, and we have to provide that for them.
Thank you. Next question will be for the senator. As a senator representing District 40, how will you begin to address issues of racial inequality in our state?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think we have to look for opportunity for everyone. And I think the key to take care of this kind of situation is to give people the opportunity to better themselves. And I think we've tried to do that from some of the options we're giving kids in school. We're spending a lot of time on career readiness because we're losing these kids in middle school. When the kid can't read by the end of 3rd grade, they're really in trouble. But by middle school, they drop out here. They can't really drop out till they're 16. But I think economic opportunity is the answer for all people, regardless of their race, regardless of their color. And we've got to move forward from that, and we've got to get together. I mean, this county and this state, for that matter, is getting much more diverse. There's going to be a lot less people looking like me in the next 20 years in this state. So I think that's the answer for just about many of our ills, is educational opportunity.
Ms. Johnson-Shealy?
I think we have to build bridges to every community. I think you have issues that are unique to certain communities, and we need to figure out what those issues are and address those issues head on. Ironically, you asked this question because Senator Millar was the one that wanted to take away voting rights for African Americans in the South DeKalb area. He made a comment that made the Huffington Post about bringing church buses to the polls. So ironically, you asked the question about race, because he hasn't been race-friendly, not that ever that I've known him.
Well, I'm going to allow Senator 30 seconds to respond.
Last time I checked, I was one of the few Republicans in America ever got an award from the NAACP, the Thurgood Marshall Award. And if you think the Huffington Post is credible, I quoted Jim Galloway from the AJC. So I'll leave it at that. Those of you that believe the Huffington Post it ranks for me worse than the New York Times. I'll leave it at that.
All right. So can I have a representative of the UPCCA, just to make sure, check the boxes and make sure there's nothing else in there. If to the extent there are additional questions, please have them brought up. But we'll head back down to the end of the table. This question will be for Mr. Malik. What is your position related to immigration reform or enforcing the current immigration laws which are on the books right now?
First, let me recognize that this is the land of immigrants. It is high time that we start accepting a peaceful coexistence environment. And we all have to be law-abiding. Whatever the law permits, whomever it permits to come to this land should have the equal opportunity to come to this land. Right at this moment, we have got 30 million US citizens. They are set to retire by year 2030. And with my good friend over there, I was doing the calculation. Within next 5 years, we'll have labor shortage. Thanks. And we have to think about it, how we can bring that, because an economy needs certain percentage of people to function that economy properly. So we cannot just make a haphazard decision what we do with the immigration. We should try to strengthen what we have now and work with it. Thank you.
Congressman.
This is one of those areas where we have a real leadership opportunity in this district. To the senator's point, we look today like America's going to look in 15 years. The immigration issue, though, is an issue of trust, and we don't have that trust. We don't have that trust across the country. We don't have that trust in Congress. I'll have a bill on the floor this week that I co-sponsored with one of the most liberal Democrats in California to begin building some of that trust. I have another bill we introduced last week with a liberal Democrat from the Northeast to begin to build that trust. The answers are not going to be found on the edges. The answers are going to be found in the middle of what is the heart of America. We should be leading that debate.
Mr. Malik, if you can pass that down. Thank you very much. All right, the next question will be for Mr. Shealey. Knowing that all rapid transit and bus transportation are federally subsidized, is it even responsible at this time in this economy to consider expanding transportation options?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that, I'm looking at as far as Gwinnett County, and, I said earlier, Gwinnett is a great county. But when you're talking about economic development, you're talking about, people, the need that people have to get to and from their jobs. Okay, one of the things that happens here is that eventually, we have gridlock on our roads now. In 2018, there's supposed to be 1.2 million people. There's 900,000 now, 1.2 million people, 2018. I'm sitting there thinking, another 300,000 cars on the road in Gwinnett County. Where are they going? And I just feel like that, we're in gridlock, and we have to do something now. We cannot wait, because 20 years from now, this is, what have we done to the next generation? What have we we haven't given them a vision, a 21st century vision to follow.
Well, it's not just about any one mode of transportation. We can't afford to focus on one to the exclusion of everything else. Freight movements are very, very important to our economic well-being here, and the railroads don't have the capacity to move much of that freight. So what we're focusing on with our comprehensive transportation plan update is all modes, and we'll be having a very robust discussion about other transportation options with with information provided about costs, timetables, and that sort of thing, so that there can be an informed debate about this issue.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Johnson-Shealy, you're up. Do you support changing the A-push exam? I believe that I'm reading that correctly. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly. It is correct. Thank you. The A-push exam. Do you support changing the A-push exam?
You're talking the AP exam?
The advanced
Yes, I'm
placement
talking.
exam?
Yes, yes. Come on, guys. Yes, please.
So the question, the advanced placement
Thank you.
exam, and the question is, do I,
Do you support changing it? That's. Remember, the audience answers the question. Asks the questions.
well, I'm not sure why that question was asked, so I'm just gonna try to answer it off the cuff here, but, the AP exam, I don't know why we would need to change it. Maybe there was more to the question that needed to be asked, and then I could answer the question, much better, because I'm not quite sure what that question is, and why would you want to change it? Is there something specific about the exam that we need to change? Is something that we need to look at?
It's a great thing about being the moderator. I just
Okay,
ask
you
the
don't know
questions.
either.
I think what has happened is the College Board, we've changed a lot of the exams right now. We've gone from 2,400 back to the 1,600, which some of us remember. We're looking at the ACT exam, looking at the AP exam. I think the question's going to be the context of some of these questions and what young people learn. Traditionally, what happens, you have to score at least a 3 on an AP exam, and if you score a 3, then you get credit for it when you go into college. And we spent a lot of time, we've got Move On, Run Ready and other things to get kids prepared so they can get out of school in less than 4 years. And I think that's maybe what this is driving this question.